How's everybody doing? We are live, and looks like I gotta move this over here. How's everybody doing? One concurrent viewer. Let's get the simulcast up. How are we doing? How is everybody? How is everybody? How is everybody? That's terrible. We gotta turn that off. That's terrible. We gotta turn that off. All right. Why is it doing that? What the hell is that noise? Why is it doing that? What the hell is that noise? Hello? What the hell is that noise? Am I tripping? what that loud squealing is. I can't figure it out. Is it my mic? Okay. Are we good now? I don't know what in the world just happened. All right. That was embarrassing. Skip this ad.
In American history. We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world to our studios in Atlanta. This is the CNN presidential debate.
This debate is being produced by CNN and is coming to you live on CNN, CNN International, CNN.com, CNN Max, and CNN Espanol. This is a pivotal moment between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in their rematch for the nation's highest office. Each will make his case to the American people with just over 4 months until Election Day. Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside Politics and co-anchor of State of the Union.
I'm Jake Tapper, anchor of CNN's The Lead and co-anchor of State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates tonight. Before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the debate with the audience at home. Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss determines their position. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on and his opponent's microphone will be turned off. Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, he will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate. By accepting our invitation to debate, both candidates and their campaigns agreed to accept these rules.
Now, please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
Oh, here he comes. He already looks lost. Look at him. Who's he pointing at? He's pointing at the podium.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
See, like, just the difference. Look at that determination. Like, he just doesn't look confused, lost. He's not pointing at the podium.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for being here. Let's begin the debate, and let's start with the issue that voters consistently say is their top concern.
What is going on?
President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since you took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100
what is happening? Hello?
Costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%.
What is happening? What is this stupid
shit? Feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump.
Hello?
You got to take a look at what I was left when I became president and what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious.
I can't get this shit to work.
It'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. we brought out the position where
Hello.
we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs, but there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Oh, I'm sorry. I had my dashboard muted. I couldn't hear, and I was like, "What is going on?"
There's a problem. The price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. That we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we.
What's up? Does anybody know what's up with his voice?
We're going to make sure we cap rents so corporate greed can't take over. The combination that I was left with in corporate greed.
Is his voice running out from Camp David
In addition
training?
to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos. And so we put things back together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for an insulin shot as opposed to $400.
I guess they
The senior has to pay more than $200.
they
for
didn't
all
drug
drugs
him.
include beginning next year. In a situation, and we're going to make that available to everybody, all Americans. So we're working to bring down the prices around the kitchen table, and that's what we're going to get done.
Thank you, President Trump.
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID, and when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many.
No
other
new
things.
wars.
Everything
Yeah,
was
that's
happening
good.
But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country, but other than that, we had given them.
I don't know what
a-
specific. Oh yeah,
a
mandate
country
vaccine
where the
mandates. You got
stock
people
market
fired.
actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created are for illegal immigrants and bounce-back jobs. The
Bounce back
from
jobs.
COVID.
Yeah, recovery
He
jobs.
has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country.
Inflation.
It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you, President Biden.
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that. I think I don't know anybody else who thinks we have the greatest economy in the world. And you know, the fact of the matter is that
Don't cough into your hand.
we
This is
found
stupid.
ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy.
He
had
rewarded the
largest
wealthy.
Tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president.
IRS tax data actually shows it benefited the middle class as well. Just wanted to add that.
Since Herbert Hoover.
Herbert
the idea
Hoover.
that he did something that was significant. And the military, you know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that.
We were
When he
killing
was
people in
president, they were still
Afghanistan.
killing
Biden
themselves
got
in
service members
Afghanistan.
killed in
Yeah.
Afghanistan. Let's remember that.
A safe country. Truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have any, this decade, that doesn't have any troops dying anywhere in the world.
He literally had U.S. service members killed in
President
Afghanistan
Trump,
during
I
his
wanna
withdrawal.
Follow up if I can. You
Am I
want
allowed to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want
job,
to
Trump.
impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S.
And
How will you
remove
ensure that
the
that
tax.
doesn't drive prices even higher?
Not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China.
The
and
effects
many
of
others in all fairness to
sanctions
China.
are
It's
unknown,
gonna
so
just force them to pay
that
us a lot of
being
money,
all things
reduce
being
our
equal.
deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You
Yep.
can't do that.
He's taking
He also
credit.
said he inherited 9% inflation. No.
He inherited
almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for
1.5%.
14 months, and then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as
Their approval
Afghanistan
ratings do
is
show that. He's
concerned,
worse than Jimmy
I
Carter.
was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history.
And then he
of our
checked his
country's
watch
life.
when they came home.
President Trump, over
The
the
dead
last
service
8
members.
years,
Oh,
under both
Biden's
of
pooping.
administrations,
Biden's
the
pooping.
national debt soared to record highs. And
Look at
according
him.
to new
Look at him.
nonpartisan
He's-
analysis, President Trump's
zoom in.
administration
He's
approved
pooping.
$8.4 trillion in new debt. Well, so far, President Biden
Just look at
approved
this.
$4.2
Donald Trump
trillion
ready
in
to
new
answer.
debt. So
Biden
President
is
Trump, many of the
literally
tax cuts that you
Shitting
signed
himself
into
right
law
now.
are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID.
I'm gonna leave a
We did
comment
a lot to fix it. I gave
on
him
the Fox
an
stream here.
unbelievable situation.
He's pooping.
With all of the
Look at his
therapies
face.
and
He's
all of the
pooping. He's
things that we came
constipated.
up with. We gave him something great. Remember,
He is
more
constipated
people
right
died
now.
under his administration.
Fact.
Even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his
Oh,
administration
he's mad.
than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it. Something which a lot of people
Exactly.
don't like to talk about.
We
But
were
there
in
far
the
more
thick
people
of it.
dying in
Biden
his
comes in and
administration. He
still
did the
gets a million
mandate, which
deaths.
is a disaster, mandating it. The vaccine went out. He did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine. And he did a very poor job, just a very poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore.
Biden,
We're like a third world
I mean,
nation
sorry,
between
Putin,
weaponization
Kim
of his
Jong-un,
election, trying to go
Xi
after his
Jinping,
political
they
opponents.
don't take Joe
All
Biden
of the
seriously.
things he's done, we've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage he's done to our country, and I'd love to ask him, and will, why he allowed millions of people to
There
come
it
here
is.
from prisons, jails, and mental
Why
institutions
did he
to
allow-
come into our country and destroy our country.
Why?
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block.
Beautiful.
President Biden, I want to give you an opportunity to respond to this question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, he got $2 trillion tax cut, benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have $1,000 trillion.
Dude,
mean,
if I was Donald Trump right now, I could not keep
What's
it.
happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers.
So he wants
they'd
to
raise $500
triple the
billion,
taxes compared to Trump.
Billion dollars, I should say, in a 10-year period. Might wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every
It's a
single
light gaff.
solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do
Eligible.
with the COVID. Excuse me,
Gaff.
dealing with everything we have.
Trump should jump in right here. I'm sorry, Joe. I didn't get any of that.
If
Gaff. He's sleeping. Sleepy Joe.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence, and it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is not to be believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with foreign people.
Excuse me.
They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected. They don't like us.
I want to
We
see
give
what
them
the
everything they want, and
the
they
Twitter
think we're
propagandists
stupid. They
say
think we're very
tomorrow
stupid
morning.
people. What
Should put a
we
video
do
out
for
on
other
that.
countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Yep.
Thank you, President Trump.
Beautiful.
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court.
So far, I have to
overturned
say
Roe.
that I feel like this has actually
This
been
morning,
well
the court
moderated.
ruled on yet another abortion case,
Knock on wood.
temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho,
Sorry.
despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision. to
Trump has said,
overturn
here,
Roe
I
v.
hope he says it. I
Wade,
did it
the
right.
issue
I
of
gave it to the
abortion
states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in
Abortion
about
pills are illegal in
2/3 of all
50% of I mean, sorry,
Absolutely.
100% of the
Do you
United
block
States.
abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion pill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this,
So
whole
Biden's been
question
lying?
you're asking, complex,
Really?
but really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to go to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices.
Whoa.
They happened to vote in favor of killing Roe
Sorry
v.
about that.
Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was an end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought. Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important. Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided, supported Roe. And that's this idea that they were all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in, they talk about that. But here's the deal: there's a lot of young women who are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world, considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which, frankly, they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. The first time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going to restore Roe v. Wade.
So that means he can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the governor, former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The
I'm an
Wade
idiot.
does
I was
not
muted.
provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only if a woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period.
You're not for it, but you're not restricting
Roe v.
it.
Wade, you have late-term abortion.
Yeah, there's
You
no
can do
restriction in
whatever
Roe
you
v.
want,
Wade.
depending on the state, you can do whatever you want.
That's
I
true.
don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
He's right.
51 years, that was the law. 51 years.
And it was wrong for 51 years. It was
51
wrong.
years, and it was taken away because
was wrong.
this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court.
He
takes credit for taking it away.
Yep.
What's he going to do?
Takes credit for
What's he
sending it
gonna
to the
do with
states.
fact if the MAGA Republicans, he gets elected, and the MAGA Republicans control the Congress. and
MAGA,
they pass
I'm
a
counting that,
ban on
even though
abortion,
it's a...
period, across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn over to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement. That
Black
not only
partisan?
changed all of that. It made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we find ourselves in a situation.
There go the eyes.
When he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers. putting them in
Separating
cages,
babies from the mothers,
making
yeah,
sure
well.
they were-
Obama brought the cages. They're not really
That's
cages.
not the right way to go. What I've
The right way to go is
I've
remain in
changed the
Mexico.
law. What's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. It's better than when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get the total ban. On
Who gave him these talking points? He spent all week at Camp David coming up with this?
And more asylum officers.
Oh my god.
I
Just...
don't know what he said at the end of that sentence.
Yep, see, look,
I don't think he knows
Donald
what he
Trump.
said either. Look, we had the same
What a
border in the history of our country. All he had to do was
Tim
say-
Pool said
all
he
had
should
to
do it, and he did it. He did it.
He decided to open up our border, open up our country to
Yep.
people that are from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane
Yep.
asylums.
They're not sending their
Terrorists.
best,
We have the
literally.
largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now. All terrorists, all over the world, not just in South.
More
America,
terrorists,
all
about
over the world. They
350
come
under
from the
Biden
Middle
have
East,
come across the
everywhere.
southern
all
border.
Over the world, they're pouring in, and this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president.
Right here.
Brandon.
264.
But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you,
caravans.
President Trump. President Biden?
I don't know.
Who's done anything across the border is one who came along and killed 3 under his administration. Killed.
He didn't do anything at the border, but I overturned all of his executive action on the border.
Kill 3.
Sorry, hold on.
Soldiers. Killed 3 American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people.
They are
It's simply
sending
not true.
criminals.
There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating. He's lying.
He's lying. Liar.
Trump,
I'll get that.
Staying on the topic of immigration, you said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic
Here we go.
deportation operation in American history, unquote. Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have
I'm actually
jobs,
interested about
including
this
those
answer.
whose spouses are
'Cause he
citizens,
said something weird
including
about
those who have lived here for
degrees
decades?
and green
if so,
cards.
how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and
Yep.
Soleimani. the two greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists
Well,
anywhere in the world.
he said
and
2,
had
but
a
he said
huge
3.
Impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people dying, and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people
Dude,
in New York, in California.
Trump just won the
every
2024
state in
election.
the
I'm
union,
sorry,
because we
I'm
don't
calling
have
it.
borders anymore. Every state
That
is
312.
on a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime.
Yep.
I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens
Put it on a
at
t-shirt.
a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like these 3 incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and they just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old.
Biden
This
is in trouble.
horrible
Look
what's
at his
taken place.
face.
What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know.
I'm waiting for
Open
her.
the
Come
borders.
on, man.
Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, or we have to get them out fast, because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City.
Paid for by the Biden administration and your
Veterans are
tax
they're
dollars.
dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all, and he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA.
I don't know if
That's
that's
worst.
true.
He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned.
This is
By
2016
far the
Trump
highest,
right
and
now.
Now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we
Let's
did.
see what the
And I
Twitterverse
think he did it
is.
just because I approved it, which is crazy.
It's gonna be funny.
But he has killed
Twitter's
so many
gonna
people
be
at our border by
Thank you,
allowing
pissed.
all of these people to come in. And
President
it's
Biden.
a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie.
Every single
Every single
thing.
one.
Every single thing he said is a lie.
We're a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them. now
He's getting
have
mad.
insurance and their families have it.
Trump's just like,
Their families
no,
have it. What happened?
wrong,
Agent Orange,
wrong.
burn pits. They're all being covered now, and he opposed. His
Hold on.
group opposed that. We're also in a situation.
We're gonna get the liars and
where we have great
suckers.
respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq.
There he is, his son. He always talks about his son.
Stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke.
He was in France for D-Day, guys.
Outside.
I know what he
went to
meant.
World War
That's
II
not fair.
cemetery, World War I cemetery he refused to go to.
Here we
He
go.
was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there.
Unproven.
Losers and suckers.
Unproven.
My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker.
Oh, here we go.
President Trump.
He's
That was a
unhinged.
made-up quote. Suckers and losers. They made
I'm
it up.
gonna put unhinged because he's unhinged.
Failing like many of these magazines.
We've almost got a
He
bingo.
made that
We've got a
up.
bingo.
Put it in commercials. We've notified
First bingo of the
We
night,
had
baby. That's a
19
drink
people
here.
that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would say I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals
No
and others, say,
new
"Suckers and losers."
wars.
19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was
19.
made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists.
Ooh, that's a hit on Dana Bash's husband, who is one of the 51
That
intelligence
the laptop
officials.
was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now.
4-star general
That was a
Sam
savage
Sanders
answer.
on your staff who said you said it. Period. That's number one. And number two, the idea.
19
the
people say
idea
he
that I
didn't.
have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history.
Name one
American
thing.
history.
You got them killed in Afghanistan. You checked your
The most
watch.
sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing.
Excuse me,
Doing more
jeez.
for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right. Thank you so much.
That was a.
Topic of foreign policy.
Dana
Russia
Bash's
begins with
husband.
Russia's war against Ukraine,
Oh, here we go.
which is now in its third year.
They're gonna get him
Former
here.
President Trump.
Trump is just gonna say, "I want people to
Vladimir
stop
Putin says he will
dying."
only end this war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed, and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
Ukraine should have.
Our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've
Oof.
ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information. As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that
Joe's getting
that was
mad.
respected by Putin,
Here comes that dementia
he would
rage.
have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers. He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment.
Yes, bash him over the head with this,
history of our
please.
country, that when Putin watched that and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost. But he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
It's true. We
Afghanistan.
botched it. Nobody
We
got
left
fired.
Billions of dollars of
What was
equipment
that?
Behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers and 38 soldiers.
Who just ran in front of Joe? What was that?
By the way, we left people behind too. We left American citizens
What was that?
behind. When Putin saw that, he said, "You know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take my."
Is Biden sleeping?
Dream. I talked to him about
Is he
his
sleeping?
dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas.
He 100% just
why?
fell asleep. I don't
Because
care what
they
anybody
always broke
says.
with me. I wouldn't let anybody do business with them. They ran out of money. They were broke. They had no money for Hamas. They had no money for anything. No money for terror. That's why you had no terror at all during my administration. This place, the whole world is blowing up under him.
I can't point to a specific world-ending event.
Biden?
Never heard so much malarkey in my whole life.
Malarkey.
The fact of the matter is that
Nobody believes you, Joe.
Let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently,
Caused
when
brain
he was
damage for a
president,
whole...
Here they attacked. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over
What
100,000
attack?
Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift.
And you got
Number three,
13 service
we
members
ourselves in a
killed.
situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump.
Speaking
"Do
of what,
whatever you
I
want,
hope Trump goes
do
full
whatever you
Ukraine
want."
right now.
And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. And
When did he
listen to
say
what
that?
said when he went in. He's going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to
Remember when
reestablish.
Obama said he'd be more flexible after an election?
Do it at all.
Do you remember that?
Able to get it done. And they've lost,
You were there, Joe.
they've lost
You would know.
thousands and thousands of troops.
Quid pro Joe.
500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
if
never
come back
said
to you
that.
for 1 minute, I just want to go back to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping
No.
the
No, they're
territory
not
in Ukraine.
acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we
True.
were a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given
Yep.
$200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever.
Exactly.
I'm not
Donald
knocking
Trump should
him.
hire
I'm
him.
not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war.
If you can honestly
we shouldn't be
watch
spending- it
these
should have
two
never
debate
happened.
and
I
tell
will
me
have that war
that Joe
settled
Biden
between
should be
Putin and
president,
Zelensky
I'll
as
eat my shoe.
president-elect Before I take office on January 20th, I'll have that war settled. People being
says
killed
it-
so needlessly.
What
so
is he looking
stupidly,
at? Joe.
I will get it settled.
Joe, where are you
get it
going?
settled fast
What is he
before I
doing?
take office.
President
know-
Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you ought to find out what he's going to do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, by the way, all that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much.
Yeah, because you
money
can't
for
sell
Ukraine
weapons.
as we have.
You can't
That's why-
sell
that's why-
information.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds.
I'm curious to
of
see how
hostages.
hawkish Trump
Among those
is
held
on
and
this
thought
issue
to
here.
still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a proposal to resolve this conflict.
This is a tough question here
But so
because
far, Hamas
he,
has
the
not
left,
released
the
their
far
new
leftist
hostages.
faction of the
Israel
Democrat
is
Party is
continuing
not a
its
fan
military
of.
offensive.
They call him Genocide
So
Joe.
what
So this is a
additional
tough
leverage
question for
will
him.
you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You
How
have to
will he
do
end the
this.
war?
Number one.
World.
Number one, United Nations Security Council, straight through to the G7, to the
See,
Israeli
Trump had
Netanyahu
maybe
South
stuttered
Korea
once,
put forward,
maybe
endorsed the
stumbled
plan put forward,
once.
which has 3 stages to it. The first stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire.
Trade the
Second
hostages
phase
for a
is
ceasefire.
with additional conditions. The
Ceasefire.
third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one. They're the only
Okay.
ones standing
I mean, I kind of
We're
agree with
still
that.
Pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened in Israel? We're finding that the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need.
I'm just like,
And
I'm
by
not
the
really
way,
on the side
I'm
of
guy
that, but like,
organized the world against Iran when they
you've already
full-blown
given them lots of stuff that has killed lots of civilians, so I don't know really where you're coming from.
No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it stopped. We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so that's
That's true.
Two different things. Hamas cannot be allowed to be continued. We continue
Cannot
send
allow to
experts
be continued.
Our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did Bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been.
You can't get Hamas like Bin Laden. Bin Laden is a person. Hamas is a group.
But you've got to be careful for
This
what
is amazing, dude. This is just a campaign ad.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us.
Yep.
Why doesn't he call them and say you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put
Why
up
does he
hundreds
not
of
hold
billions
other
of
nations
dollars.
accountable?
The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any. They were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all. You got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one that wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
Boy.
President Biden-
That was not a great line. I don't know about that one.
Foolishness.
That
This
was
is
a little
guy who wants
foolish.
to get out of NATO. Are you going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have our strength lies in our alliances as well.
He never has been great at pulling out.
Are we able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine.
Again, but not with that much
in
money.
South Korea, because they understand that this
Money
this
is what they need. They don't need,
has
like,
a serious threat to the whole.
We're on
world.
your side.
No major war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that,
He did say
the
have to
problem we
see.
have is
That's
that
fair.
we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations. Because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have. But we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question. Would you guard us?
I'm not
against
going to
Russia?
support. That's a quote
At
right there.
the
I'm not going to
secret
support
meeting of
NATO
28,
if you do not pay.
States at that time, the nations at that time. And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's
Thank you.
bills.
Let's
Yep.
turn to the issue of democracy.
Donald Trump is doing a
Former
great job
President
staying
Trump,
within his
I wanna ask you about
time,
January 6,
nailing it.
2021. After
Here we
you
go.
rallied your supporters that day, some of them
January
stormed the
6th.
Capitol to stop the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes.
Isn't-
As president,
I
you
just
swore
don't
an
see the
oath
benefit
to,
in
quote,
stopping
preserve,
it.
protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath?
What do you
through
say
your
to
actions and inaction on
people
January
that
6th,
say that
knowing
you're
you'll do it
biased because you
Well,
called
I
him
can really
Hitler?
believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through. Very few.
Here we go.
On January
He's going to
6th,
say nobody cares about January
we
6th.
had the lowest taxes
I want
ever.
inflation
We had
down.
the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over
It was a
the
bad
world.
riot.
All over the world. we
I
were
don't care what
respected.
anybody
And then
says.
he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people.
Yep.
That what happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking
Here we
about,
go.
where he goes after his political opponent. 'cause
No,
he
they're not
can't
gonna
beat
talk
him
about
fair and
that.
square.
You have 80 seconds left.
Oh, they're
My
not
question
cutting his
was,
mic.
What do you say to those voters who believe that you violated?
Biden's like, cut his mic, dude. He's talking about what he's not supposed to. Cut his mic. Cut his mic.
And worry that you'll do it again.
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically.
True.
And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say, but she's saying, "Oh no, it's
That
my
earpiece is bothering him.
responsibility. I was responsible." For
What
this."
is he
So
looking
I
at?
ordered
He's
10,000
zoning out. Does he even know what's
yesterday.
happening?
And the mayor, in writing, by the way, the mayor,
don't know what the
in
hell is
writing,
happening.
turned it down. The mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because
I don't
I
know
could
why
see-
everything just
I had
fell all of a sudden.
Virtually
That was-
nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech.
sucked.
I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And
Sorry
I said,
about
you
that.
know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered
mouse,
it to her,
man.
and she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day.
I don't know if
she
she's
was-
admitted that.
I don't know. You can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Did she say that?
Look,
I don't know.
he encouraged those folks to go up on Capitol Hill.
No, he didn't. He
I
didn't.
sat in a
He encouraged them to be there. He didn't encourage them to
3 hours.
break windows.
3 hours watching, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of America. In
Great,
fact,
great patrons of
he
America.
forgive them for what they've done. Well, they've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. He went to every single court in the nation.
What is
I don't
with
know
his?
how many cases.
Drink some water, man.
Scores of cases, including the Supreme Court, and they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out, and now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that there could be
Called him a whiner.
Thank you, President Biden.
He called him a whiner.
What they've done to
You're a
so people
whiner.
who are so innocent. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down
Yep.
many other cities.
Some people might not like this
Minnesota,
answer, but he's right.
Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that. They saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off.
Speak up,
Peaceful,
Brandon.
patriotic. One other thing. The Unselect Committee.
I love the
which
comments.
is
Someone's like, "Speak up,
basically
Brandon."
Two horrible Republicans that are all gone now, out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats.
Apparently,
They
CNN's live feed does
destroyed
not
and
have
deleted
chat.
all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is...
Well, he's not the only person that's a convicted felon.
It's simply not true. The fact is that there was...
Okay, that doesn't seem like there's any verified truth.
What was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those...
What did he call him?
...deserves to be convicted.
He called him a convicted
the
felon.
idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned them over statues.
So literally what
The idea
Antifa did.
that those people are patriots? Come on. When I asked
They're
in the
patriots,
first
they're just
debates we had,
made
the
really,
debates we had
really
right
bad
the first time
decisions.
around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boy? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
Attack the Capitol? What are you going to do?
I'm going to give you a
Come on, man.
President Trump, for a follow-up question I have.
Malarkey.
After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
If these are the rules of the game.
Retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon.
Yeah, I mean, he said it.
with all of the
Retribution will be
things that
my
he's done.
success.
He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo.
He got impeached for
We're
that.
not going to do anything. We're not going to.
He got impeached for what Joe Biden
change
did.
the prosecutor having to do with his son. This man is a
Oh,
criminal.
Hunter Biden.
This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have
I did
said-
nothing wrong.
Coming right to you, sir.
I don't know
Oh, you wanna
if
respond?
Hunter Biden's not really.
The idea that
Here we
I
go.
did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous.
Oh, it's outrageous. Ask him about documents, Donald Trump. Ask him about documents. Let's talk about the documents case.
Because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes the U.S. still charged with. And think of all the civil penalties there. How many billions of dollars do you know in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about? You have the morals of an alley cat.
He has the morals of an alley
He had
cat.
sex with a porn star.
Okay, he was still denying it. I feel like he probably
that
did.
was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ,
Yep.
into the Manhattan DA's
Matthew
office
Colangelo.
to start that case.
Colangelo.
That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very
He's confident.
terrible
I'm not.
judge, horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor,
Juan
were all
Merchan, yep.
high-ranking Democrats,
Yep.
appointed people.
Alvin
and
Bragg.
Both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political
I'm gonna
opponent
say
because
Stormy
the
Daniels, 'cause he
voters
mentioned
demanded
her.
it. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it. And we took in more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam, and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you,
Yep.
President Trump. President
Crooked
Biden,
Joe.
You have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans
MAGA
are
Republicans.
determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump
Bullshit.
will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what
We're a
he's
republic,
done,
not a
yes,
democracy. That's
the more
important.
they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole
Yes,
range
please
of
talk
cases
about
that he's
documents. Let's go.
I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know
Let's
he
talk
has
about
a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you hear any president say that I'm going to seek retribution. You ever hear
He
the
said my
president
only
say that
retribution would be
he thought I
success.
had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying
Here's
swastikas
another.
on
See,
torches,
CNN should be
torches,
fact checking this because
and some
Snopes
anti-Semitic bile was
Snopes
signed
recently.
back in Germany, and the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The people the ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop him, and the ones he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president?
All I know is it happened. I can't
ever
find it.
said, Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas. They're fine people.
He didn't call them.
Says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they
When
are.
did he say that?
Good things Hitler's done. That's what he said.
When?
This guy has no sense of American democracy.
President Trump.
What?
Both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on that. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency is, without question, the worst president
Since Jimmy
in the
Carter?
history of our country. We shouldn't be having a
Oh.
debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story.
Say
You'll
hoax.
see it's debunked all over the place.
Debunked.
Every
It's
anchor
bunk.
every reasonable
it's
anchor
debunked.
has debunked it. And just the other day it came out where
Biden
it was
challenged
totally
him.
debunked. It's
By
a
Snopes.
nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
And debunked. It happened.
Nope. Debunked it.
Said it
Sorry.
all the time.
Members of Congress
And the
Homeland
idea
Security.
that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought
He already got elected at that point.
coming out of that
So you already knew he could
carrying
be.
those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve.
Yeah, those
to be
people
president.
suck.
Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time.
Because they're liars and
President
leakers.
endorsed him this time. So why?
Liars and
They know him
leakers.
well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN
Oh.
presidential debate.
Yeah, so Joe Biden getting spanked on the national stage, man. We just got to do our part on the social media. Joe Biden's getting destroyed. It's not even close. Joe Biden's entire presidential campaign is imploding. Let's look at the Snopes. Very fine people lie. Right here. No. As a matter of fact, Trump did not call neo-Nazis white supremacists or very fine people. It's false. Wow. This really isn't good for Democrats, man. Really not good. Just a lie. I don't really care about Lauren Boebert that much. Let's see what people are saying.
I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception.
There we go.
Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the
I don't
court,
remember.
and they
Can we
happened
watch
to vote
this?
in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted.
Yeah, see, Tim Pool predicted this, and I love it. I'm a big fan. See if I can. See if it'll. This was literally me, you guys. Yeah, so it's getting a little hot, man. I'm sweating. Ooh. He did. Look. Whew, sweaty. You literally forgot, Joe.
Welcome back to the CNN presidential debate live from Georgia. Let's talk about persistent challenges you both faced in your first terms, and you'd certainly face again.
All right,
in
let's
the
get back
second
to it.
term. President Biden, while black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there are more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black unemployment is the lowest level
You guys ever
it's
put
been in a long, long time.
beer on ice before?
Number three, we're trying to provide housing for black Americans.
So we only have
And dealing with
one bingo right now, which is kind of disappointing.
exist among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses.
Just, God,
In
how are
addition to
people
that, we
saying?
find that the impact on the choice that black families have to make relative to child care is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black child care costs. Cut them in
Black
half.
child care costs.
We got to make sure we provide.
Interesting way to pose that.
Got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly.
That's fair.
For example, I provided for the
I was trying
idea
to see
that
if I could have like my
any
Twitter
black
up at the same
family,
time, but no.
first-time home buyer should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home, so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who provided had to take out student loans that were ballooning, that if they were engaged in nursing, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years and their student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that.
That's
And we're
fair.
gonna do a whole
I
lot
actually
more.
agree with if you're making payments.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right. It's been very bad.
Inflation was
He caused the
1.5%.
inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him a country with essentially no inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New Scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black jobs now, and it could be 18 It could be 19 and even 20 million people. They're taking black jobs and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, if the ACA has increased, I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again, and they're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on, but in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job, great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
You've 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. We find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges. I came up with $15 billion for HBCUs, historic black universities and colleges, because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing any white student can do. They just don't have the money, but now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately joined it because if we reach 1.5 degrees Celsius at any one point, there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing. It was a ripoff of the United States. And I ended it because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it. And it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything if we're not able to, the United States can't get its pollution under control? One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people who will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot have to pay.
Thank you.
And by the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent, but the biggest thing I'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanted to cut Social Security and Medicare, both times. And and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that I believe supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And under the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, we're in a situation where we talk about education for black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants by another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward their tuition. He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians all my life. I've been on this side of the equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. About so many other things, too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden?
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it, number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these millions and millions, the way he talks about it, illegal aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world, the reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put them there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit, like this much. It's insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We are the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody, number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up or go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history. One through best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care, he did virtually nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm given another 4 years, I will be the best. I think I'll be the best. Nobody's ever created an economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the two of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I'd grow up and I'd see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about, he's increased the tariff, he will increase the taxes on middle-class people. I said I'd never raise a tax on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. But this tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming into the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that are important. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he's somehow helped the middle class. The middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot, and we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of...
The gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. but the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across our border now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, "Don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically." No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors for fentanyl. And Mexico is working with us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, because this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done, hard negotiations with Mexico, and I got it all for nothing. It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter, I think a good guy, and he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago, but Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where we paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done. Look how I've turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips, we used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And guess what? Those fabs, they call them, to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I've never heard a president talk like this before.
Well, he's not the president.
We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president who wouldn't trade places with the United States of America for all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us. All of our allies and those who he coddles up to, from Kim Jong-un, who he sends love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up,
What is he
you would be
staring
82
at
the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities?
So he's looking at her. Joe Biden's
I took 2
staring.
tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. like go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was.
I don't
years
see, like,
ago.
he's
I
probably
feel very good. I
exaggerating.
feel the
He's
same.
like,
But
I have the
was
perfect
willing to
body.
take a cognitive
I'm
test. And you know what?
irresistible.
If I didn't do well, I aced him. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy. When he
Maybe
was
don't
White
bring
House
him up.
doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one.
Supposed
And
pill
both-
mill.
One of them said they've never seen anybody ace him.
Thank you.
I don't know about
President
that. Like I said.
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what you. Anyway, just take a look at what he says.
I never said I was
Look at
6'5".
what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president.
Oh my god, dude. This is terrible.
And by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag. Think you can do it?
It was a 6 handicap of all.
8 handicap. Eight. But I have, you know how many?
Joe Biden
Seriously,
is done,
guys.
bro. This is.
Okay, let's
You know,
Let's not
you're
act
living
like
around-
children.
President Trump, we're going to
21
turn
Let's
Wrong.
not act like children.
to
You're
a
a child.
specific concern
You're a
that
child.
voters have about you.
Oh my god.
Will you pledge tonight
Knock it off.
that
I'll turn this
all
car
legal
around. That
challenges
was
have been
hilarious.
exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and
Oh.
also my statement that I made
just
in the
gonna
Rose
make
Garden, you would say it's one of the
full
strongest
screening.
statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made,
I'm looking for
in
crooked
front of, I
sharks,
believe, the largest crowd I've
electric
ever
cars,
spoken to,
stolen
and I will
hoax, and
tell you,
cocaine. I don't
nobody
think I'm
ever
gonna get
talks
there.
about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent, because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again.
There we
I'm
go.
gonna
He
make
said it. He
America
said
great
it.
again.
Let's
We're a
go.
failing nation
MAGA,
right
baby.
now. We're a seriously
Yeah, I don't
failing
like full
nation.
screen.
And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer
Yes!
to World
Bingo,
War III
bitch!
than
Let's go!
anybody can imagine.
Finally!
We're very, very
We
close
got
to
2
World War
bingos,
III,
baby.
and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong Un and President Xi of China,
Let's go.
Kim Jong Un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III, let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is an attack on all, a required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done, what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation.
Didn't they already
We're
say
wonderful.
that?
It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, if you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election?
He said I would.
Regardless of who wins.
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. He's not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia.
I already know that
Because Ukraine's
the
not
media is
winning
going to be out
that war.
enforcing
He said,
Donald
"Oh,
Trump refuses to accept the winner of this
They're running
election.
out of people. They're running out
But
of
if he wins, will
soldiers. They've
Biden
lost so many
accept?
people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked if I were
President Trump,
president.
the question was, will you accept the results of
No,
the
Dana
election,
Bash really wants this
regardless
one.
of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it.
I'm going to count that.
Or we'll have another one of these in a week.
Freaking Jimmy Carter.
I will absolutely. There's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Let's see what your numbers are when this election is over.
Let's see what his numbers are when this debate is
You're a
over.
whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed.
Has Donald
That's
Trump
all
name
across the
called
country.
as much as
Not
this guy
one
has?
single court in America said any of your claims had any merit.
That's not
state
accurate.
or local, none. But you continue to provoke this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all.
No.
And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner.
Joe Biden stole the
Now,
2020
if you lose
election.
Again, you accepting anything? You can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate, live from Georgia.
Joe Biden is an idiot, dude. Complete and utter buffoon. Wow. Biden is getting pounded. Sounded really gay. But this game's over. I mean, this election's over. See.
I didn't like that he brought up like the fraud of 2020 there at the end, but it's late in the debate.
The way
was
he
brief.
handled it was
He pivoted
far
out.
more precise than he has in past debates, though. And the fact that he allowed it to go to break, that is huge. Because it could have just turned into this back and forth. The golf thing I didn't love. I mean, it's like whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like that sounds like
Yep.
two guys at the villages. You know?
Yeah, yeah.
No,
He-
no,
he
you know
handled
what,
it
though?
right,
But
though.
that's humanizing. I would disagree, Charles.
Yeah. People on Twitter are getting destroyed for their nonsense. I mean, fire hose of lies from DJT. How did he? Okay. How did you get a cold at Camp David? He has a cold, guys. That's why. That's why he's crazy. Oh shoot, we better go back. Oh shit. Let me go back to the simulcast here.
We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience, or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is,
No,
I said,
taxes are too high for everybody.
a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm right, that will be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds
Inflation was
himself in a
1.5%
position
when he
where
left.
Now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States.
He actually said he wanted to replace income tax with the tariffs.
He wants to get away with
And if the tariffs are so bad, why hasn't Joe Biden removed the tariffs?
For the ability for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along. It's happening now, and everybody in America.
Someone just said Joe Biden sounds like RFK.
We're going to make sure that we have
It's true.
child care. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for child care. We're going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country.
God, he's so
We're going
boring.
to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Oh, this is it.
Like so
I
many
realize.
politicians, this man is
Well,
just a complainer.
we had two
He
bingos.
said we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax, but he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible.
I'm going to say
rebuilt the
hoax
military.
because of
We
the
got
Charlottesville
largest tax cut in
lies.
history,
I think
the
that
largest
counts.
regulation cut in history.
Bleach was a
The
no.
reason he's got jobs
Sharks
is
was
because
a
I cut
no.
the regulations that gave
Say anything
jobs.
about a
But he's
wall.
putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen.
He accused
anything
him
like.
of being
Even
crooked.
From a medical
Okay.
standpoint, right to try. Well, we can try space-age materials instead of
implied
going to
it.
Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
Donald Trump just won the debate, man. That was incredible. That was incredible. Absolutely incredible. Let's see what Tim Pool's saying. Because I like this guy.
Not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
It's a much more positive.
Thank you,
message.
former President
I needed
Trump,
that.
President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
Well, I actually would like to give a shout out and a thank you to CNN for hosting this. I think the moderators kept it chill. They stayed out of it. It does seem like they did try to help Biden in some capacity, only not necessarily politically, but because the dude was struggling. That being said, by putting this debate on,